Hello everyone, it is Joe here from Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon, and today we're looking at an interesting archetype, Espeon Wobbuffet. It's one that I've been toying around with for a little while now, and it's been gaining a bit of popularity, and it's being talked about a bit more here and there by a few players, based on really the fact that it plays Wobbuffets, and Wobbuffet's quite important right now in the metagame for a couple of different matchups, and you're just pairing it with seemingly a nice partner with Espeon because it has some good, awkward, and flexible attacks in here. And the archetype is pretty simple, pretty straightforward, um, and there's a lot of synergy here as well. So it's one that I thought was worth a mention and worth looking at because I think in the right metagame this can be a very strong call. So let's start with Espeon GX. It's a 200 HP Psychic type, which is really nice because it means we are going to hit for weakness on Mega Mewtwo, which is one of the first things you want to tick off on your list of good matchups because Mega Mewtwo is pretty popular right now. Mega Mewtwo also has been tipped off to have a pretty strong decidueye because it is also a deck that can tech Wobbuffet, and it plays Shrine of Memories also, so they're able to heal themselves off from decidueye if ever they're not getting one hit KO'd. So having a good matchup against Mewtwo is important right now, I feel. We do have weakness ourselves to Psychic, so you have to bear in mind that Mega Gardevoir is going to be an issue. But overall, I think Psychic is a decent type to be right now. It has 3 attacks, which leads to one of the strengths, as you can see on the right side of your screen, that the deck is flexible. We have 3 attacks on the Espeon, and we also have tech attackers in Wobbuffet and Lugia as well. So, Psybeam is the first one for a single Psychic, dealing 30 damage, and it leaves the opponent's active Pokemon confused. Bear in mind, of course, we do have the very important Energy Evolution Eevee, which means just attaching one Psychic means that we can search the deck for Espeon, play it straight onto our Eevee, even if it's turn 1, and if we're going second, we can actually Psybeam on the first turn, despite being a stage 1 Pokemon. So it's really nice, very frustrating, definitely for these um, basic EX Pokemon, where they can't simply evolve their way out of status. They have to find a switch card. Oftentimes, there are decks playing Floatstone right now, even more so the case because of Wobbuffet, really. People are moving into using Floatstone. And I think Olympia is played right now more than PCL, but these are ways that people get around confusion and other statuses, but really it's a one-off, if at all. So forcing these answers from the opponent is annoying. If not, they've got to flip the coin, and sometimes that can really help out keeping your Espeon healthy and buying you turns, really, which is really nice. Its 2 other attacks are for the same cost, a Psychic Double Colorless. The first one is Psychic, dealing 60 damage plus 30 more, times the amount of energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. So it is very familiar to Psychic Infinity on the Mega Mewtwo, but it doesn't count the energy attached to ourselves. So it's on a slightly lower power level, but naturally you would assume that you get to around 120, 150 damage a lot of the time with this attack. And that's a really good baseline. Going for 2-hit knockouts, we do have early Psybeams that we can fire off. We have Professor Kukui in here as well. So there are ways that we can try and ramp this up to try and sometimes get 1-hit KOs against decks that need to pile energy on themselves. Things like Mega Mewtwo, in fact, and also things like Yveltal, where they need to keep up with us. We can sit there Psybeaming away with just 1 energy on and force them to go big with Evil Ball and punish that with a Psychic attack. So again, the output is somewhat in your opponent's control, but normally if they're attacking you back, and if you're the one dealing with attackers, it's going to be around this 120 benchmark a lot of the time, which is a good thing to be at because we're 2-hit KOing even other GX Pokemon, so it is a strong attack. And then we have the GX attack, Divide GX, places 10 counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way that you like. This is also very, very strong. There's many a situation where this is huge. It means that you have an instant win against Gyarados, which is funny, but it also means that you can just place the counters where you need to. There's a lot of synergy in this deck for placing counters. Wobbuffet's attack does more for each counter already on your opponent's Pokemon. As I said, Psychic will be dealing around the 2-hit knockout benchmark. If you're able to be a bit more efficient, divide GX, like 3 or 4 counters to finish off the active, and then start setting up their second attacker to get in range from future attacks from Psychic or maybe again one of our other Pokemon. This can be really important for us, and even lower HP things you can take some nice snipes on. And even to an extent, the decidueye matchup, this helps out a lot because oftentimes the way decidueye likes to play the game is they will tank hits with their big old decidueye GXs and simply retreat to the bench. And instead of forcing a Lysandre, all we need to do now to finish off the decidueye is simply divide a bunch of counters onto it to finish it off. So it is versatile. Placing 10 counters in any way that you like gives you plenty of options throughout the game to set things up for KOs whilst also threatening, pretty much any way you want. So it is a very nice GX attack, and, it's a once-a-game thing, but you will always get use out of it, really. It is very strong indeed. From there, we do have 2 of the 3 evolutions. We are using Vaporeon for the Aqua effect, mainly for Volcanion. We don't necessarily have a bad Volcanion anyway, because Psychic ramps up nicely. It does 150 against the Volks, so just Psybeaming them beforehand or dividing a few counters on each of their Volcanions and then going for Psychics for 1-hits benefits you nicely. But it's when they start getting Fury Belts on board where it becomes awkward, especially if they can just steam up like crazy and keep going. It's not great for you, so turning Psybeam into a 60 damage for 1 energy is nice, and it means that Psychic is going to be getting knockouts, no questions asked. So we like having this in here just to shore up the matchup more than anything. Again, I don't think it's awful, so if you're fine against Volk without it, I can say this is potentially a cut card. But really, this deck does actually have quite a bit of space. You can see with our trainer line, it's all fairly high counts of things and decent tech supporters and an amount of tech supporters, which is generous. So we have the space for Vaporeon, so I feel it's important to shore up Volcanion because it is a relevant deck right now in the format. Similarly, we're playing Jolteon. It's nice for 1-hit KOing Shaymin, which this deck can't actually do without the Jolteon in here. Psychic only doing 60. And they're never going to attach to Shaymin if they're going to, unless they're going to Sky Return. So it means that now we can simply Lysandre Shaymins and KO them, which is really nice. But also it's going to help out again. Rayquaza could be an awkward matchup. Now that we're able to Psybeam for 60, for just 1 energy commitment is good. Again, Psybeam is a big part of this deck, and turning that 30 damage poke into potentially a really relevant number, especially if they are going to flip that coin, push themselves to 90 damage, then you've not been hurt, then you can finish off their Rayquaza. I know it's kind of risky trying to base your whole deck around flips, but a lot of the time they're in your favor because they're so relevant if they go well that your opponent can't really stabilize, and if they go badly, you've only commit 1 energy onto your attacker, and because we have elixirs in here and plenty of fairly cheap attackers, it's not that costly if they actually flip the heads. So I really like Psybeam and how the deck functions with it. So the Jolteon, as I say, helps against Rayquaza. It means that also we can 1-hit KO those things, as well as Psybeam just being more strong in the early turns and helping us deal with their aggression, which is important. So here are the tech attackers. First of all, 3 Wobbuffet. 3 is a very high count. We want to start Wobbuffet quite a lot. It's surprising because we actually have a few abilities in here. Actually, all of our other Pokemon have abilities except Espeon, but it's only really something to be aware of when you want to start Eevee or when you want to start Wobbuffet, because of course, if Wobbuffet's in the active, you can't use Energy Evolution, so you have to be a little bit careful on that front. But overall, he just provides so much for us. Ability Lock is amazing right now in the format. Obviously, Decidueye Vileplume is the biggest one that you have to turn to. It means that we can play our game plan normally. We can still search out our Pokemon. We even can, under Item Lock, we can search out our main attacker in Espeon just via a Psychic Energy attachment, which we play 9 of in here. So we're never going to miss out on attacker against Decidueye, which is great. But if you happen to start Wobbuffet, it means that they're probably not going to set up many Decidueye in the first place because they are pretty reliant on Shaymin themselves to get into their Stage 2 lines. And it means that if they do develop the Vileplume, we don't really care. We can still play out our entire hand, VS Seeker back for Lysandres, and set up our board behind Wobbuffet, which is excellent. Also, it's going to slow down other speedy engines like Rayquaza I've already mentioned. Also, Volcanion is one where they can go crazy with steam ups into power heaters for like 90 plus damage. That would be really painful on our Espeons, but if it's a Wobbuffet in the active, we really care a lot less, which is great news for us. So he's just really good right now. He's being thrown and splashed into a lot of decks just for his ability alone, but in this deck, he serves a more proactive role because we do play Psychic Energy in here and we play Elixirs, so Psychic Assault does actually become a factor in this deck. Wobbuffet can smash as well sometimes. He does 10 base and 10 more for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. Very strong. As I've already mentioned, Espeon is oftentimes in that 2-hit KO range. We have Divide GX, which can place counters around. And it's just all good stuff, really. It's just really good for you. So I think placing, is it 5 counters? Yeah, 5 counters onto Hooper means that you can actually KO Hooper with Wobbuffet as well. There are little tricks you can do math-wise to make the Wobbuffet get KOs that your opponent may not expect at times. And just in general, you can finish off things that Espeon hasn't been able to quite manage, which is good. And again, he's a non-EX. He's actually pretty tanky as well. 110 isn't ideal for a lot of Pokemon, so Wobbuffet's really good in so many reasons, and he's a big part of this deck. The other non-EX attacker that we are opting to play in here is Lugia. Lugia is a colorless type with 120 HP, and it has the ability Pressure. As long as this Pokemon's in your active, any damage done by attacks from your opponent's active Pokemon is reduced by 20. So effectively, to one-hit KO Lugia, it has to be 140 damage attack. And I'm playing this card in here really to shore up a couple of matchups. I like its early game aggressiveness because with Elixir and DCE, you can actually use Intensifying Burn as early as turn 1, doing 60 base and 60 more if the opponent's active is an EX Pokemon. This is really handy against things like Turbo Darkrai and also to an extent Volcanion also, because you throw it up as a non-EX, it's not easy for them to respond on it too quickly. Darkrai has trouble ramping up to 140 in the first 2 to 3 turns. I think by turn 3 they've probably got there, but by that time we've probably got 2 Intensifying Burns off. And what's really important is we're not a Psychic type. Darkrai has Psychic Resist on us, so our actual attack Psychic is only capping at around 100, because they'll only have 2 energy on their Darkrai's and they have Resistance on us. So being able to deal 120 with Lugia is a really solid and important number, so that we can 2-hit these Darkrai's and start dealing with them as quickly as possible. So getting Intensifying Burns on especially Darkrai, the Lugia is in here as a tech more than anything else for that matchup. But in general, it's just a really good attack. He's again a Pokemon that can one-hit KO Shaymin, which this deck does definitely require. You just force an endgame scenario much quicker with Lugia. He's a non-EX that your opponent has to deal with, so he serves a lot in here. He's a very balanced card, very strong, and he's not been seen a lot of, but he fits a really good role in here for a lot of purposes. Our final Pokemon is just one Shaymin EX. Because we have so many Wobbuffets, and we start Wobbuffet so often, Shaymin's a bit of a liability. We still like the option to have it, of course, and with 1 Olympia and 3 Floatstones, we will move out the Wobbuffet and time our Shaymin correctly to get some nice draw out of it. We also have Sky Return if need be. You can Sky Return back into a Wobbuffet if you want to, if you have nothing else going for you. So again, just a nice versatile card to keep in the deck, and it's too risky, I think, to play the deck without Shaymin altogether, unless you want to go really down the budget route, which this deck can be, of course, because if you take out the Shaymin, it's only 3 GX Pokemon, and not even an expensive one at that, so from there it's non-EX, and really just not even any holos apart from Jolteon, so this could be a budget deck for certain. For now, though, I do like the use and utility of 1 Shaymin to help us keep drawing. Into the items, we are playing 1 Super Rod. It's going to help get back some of our one-ofs if it's important enough in the matchup, as well as just cycle some energy. There's a few energy denial decks around right now. There's Houndoom Mill, there's Quad Lapras, there's also Espeon Hammers, so being able to cycle these energy is important. What I really like against all those archetypes is that you can confuse them, and confusing them is actually really annoying for those sorts of decks because they like to sit there and just do nothing and just announce attacks. Like Lapras just wants to collect every turn, Houndoom wants to Melting Horn, so being able to confuse them is actually really good for denying their approach, because sometimes if they choose to attack, they flip tails, then they come into range of things like Psychic or Divide or whatever else. So sometimes they just have to pass, and then they're not really achieving their own goal. So yeah, Super Rod's good for the mill decks, and in general, just painful discards. We have 2 Nest Ball in addition to our 4 Ultras. This is just going to really shore up the fact that we can get Wobbuffet on turn 1 if we're going first against a Decidueye Plume, throw it into the active to slow them right down. It also means that we can get access to Lugia and multiple Eevee as well. It's important in the matchups where Jolteon and Vaporeon are relevant that you get multiple Eevees down, because you need to be attacking with one of them. You need to have another one safe in the back to evolve up into one of these stage 1s later on. Then we are playing 3 Trainer's Mail for consistency purposes more than anything. Then we have some 4-ofs. Max Elixir is one that you wouldn't really associate with an Espeon deck, naturally, because it's a stage 1. But because we have the backup attackers of Wobbuffet and Lugia, they just get so much more efficient if we can use Elixir to get there. Additionally, we can simply Elixir onto an Eevee. That's completely fine. We can still evolve into Espeon the traditional way and wait a turn and then just do it. Or alternatively, you could Elixir first, then attach a Psychic to get 2 Psychics on. Not always the most efficient way, but it's a possible way to keep getting attackers going throughout the game. So yeah, I really like Elixir. We have the same odds as like a Yveltal deck would, with the 9 basic 4 special energy split. Elixir comes off quite often for us, and it's nice. It's just some nice supplementary acceleration to keep us in the game with multiple attacking options. And that's really what the deck's all about, having options to deal with whatever your opponent's going to try and do. 4 Ultra Ball and 4 VS Seeker, just the simple standard cards. A few one-offs. Delinquent is an interesting one, really because people just don't really know how to play around this deck, and it's a deck that's a little bit wacky, a little bit off the wall. Sometimes they just don't expect a Delinquent to come in, and you can just change the game on that basis alone. Delinquent and Confusion, if you delinquented them to 0, that can really, really hurt at times. And because there's not really any stadium that we need to play, I just thought a Delinquent saves us slots, and we can still contest the Stadium War as well. So there's a few options. People don't expect it, but if your opponent has a stadium that's annoying you, you still have a way of getting rid of it without having to commit 2 or 3 actual stadium slots to this deck. We are playing Professor Kukui. It can help get numbers with Espeon, as we do have a variable output. The opponent can play around with our numbers, so being able to manipulate them, get a little bit of a bonus on things like Psychic Assault and Espeon's attacks in general can be really helpful. We do have the Olympia in here. Really, this is for when we don't lead Wob and the opponent has got the turn 1 plume up. We can simply move ourselves back into Wob, which is really nice. And then hopefully from there we can start slamming down Floatstones and our other item cards. And prepare ourselves for when Wobbuffet is either KO'd or we move out to start attacking again. It also gives us that little bit of heal. Sometimes that can push us out of range. 200 is a tanky amount, and being able to heal 30 off sometimes is pretty important for you. And then we just have the normal standard supporter line of 2 Lysandres, 3 N, and 4 Professor Sycamore. Nothing too surprising at all. Only the 2 Lysandre. Some decks have been bumping up to 3 lately because it's important to deal with a lot of threats right now. Just people are playing 3 Lysandre physically because they want to have it against the decidueye plume often. But I feel 2 is fine in this deck because we divide anyway. We can still access the bench even though we're not Lysandring on certain turns. So it's just the 2 count, the standard count really for now. Then we have 3 Floatstone. Really nice on Wobbuffets. It can also go on Espeons. Even though it has a 1 retreat cost, it's still fine. We only play floats, so just having some nice maneuverability is helpful. And then again, 4 DC, really important for the Espeon and the Lugia's attacks. And the Psychics, of course, again, Espeon getting the energy evolution. And also having Wobbuffet as a viable attacking option is cool. So, let's jump into... Actually, let's look at some alternatives that you could be playing in this list. Let me just take a quick swig of water as I jump to the first card here. The Non-EX Hooper. It's an interesting one of that serves a few purposes actually in here. Hyperspace Punch is really good early game pressure. Placing 20 on 2 of your opponent's Pokemon is actually really good, especially because it doesn't apply weakness and resistance to the bench. This again can be a means of putting more counters on things like Darkrai in the early turns. In a similar way to how I like to play Lugia, Hooper with that awkward HP in the early turns can give you, or just lower the amount of damage on, or lower the amount of HP on the Darkrai so you can get in range with your Espeon later on, which is nice. Again, we're playing Elixirs, so Portal Strike's actually not out of the equation, and he too hits a decent number. Putting 20s on the board is also really helpful for making Divide GX that much better later on. You can put Shaymins into range, you can put Hoopers into range of Wobbuffet, Hooper EXs I should say, and it's just a really nice niche card as a one-of. I've not taken the plunge on it, but I have tested it a bit, and it is a decent option for sure. Taurus GX is another card that you may consider. Again, I quite like this as an option for Turbo Darkrai if it's really causing you problems, because it is slightly out of your favour, that matchup. That's one of the downsides to this deck. But playing Taurus not only would be a nice early game wall for you, just to fire off Horn attacks and force them to play into Rage. Even Mad Bull is fine because Divide GX isn't actually that good against Darkrai. It pretty much does the same thing as a Psychic would do. So just having this option is really good against Turbo Dark. Again, it's mainly for the early turns, but also if you force confusion on the opponent, a lot of Darkrai players are just playing escape ropes. So if you Nest Ball, find yourself a Tauros in the early turns, they basically can't escape rope anymore, and they just have to pass turns away under confusion, or they flip the coin, and you know how that goes half the time. So Taurus is really nice for you. It can swing the matchup. I think it makes it 50-50-ish. The main reason I'm not playing it is because it's still a chunky Pokemon that you don't really like having active a lot of the time. There are decks that get around it too easily, and it's just too many free prizes. I prefer being a mainly non-EX deck with this approach and using one or two Espeon throughout, and then just using Wobbuffet and Lugia from there to polish up the rest of the prizes and make life awkward for the opponent. Another thing is just you could play also the Stage 1 Flareon if you're really super concerned about the decidueye. Honestly, I feel the matchup is fine for you without the Flareon, but you could go super easy mode and just try and stick Flareon in, get it set up against the decidueye, force them to like Lysandre KO this or whatever, and that'll probably just shore up the matchup. Turn it from like a 70-30 to like a 90-10. So sure, if you want to do that, why not? I don't really see it helping out in too many other matchups. But yeah, if you want to easy mode the best deck in format, this is one way to do it. Next up is Stadium. I mentioned Delinquent as our only real way of getting around other stadiums, but you could also consider a few others. Faded Town could be helpful. We already have things like Jolteon for Rayquaza, and we already have good typing over Mewtwo, so this doesn't help out a huge amount, but really it's for Mega Gardevoir, which is a very unfavourable matchup for you, normally. But if you have Confusion and you're using Faded Town, it can actually go a little bit better for you. Putting these counters, putting things into range of Wobbuffet, getting you closer to those numbers can be really helpful, and every turn that they're confused is really good for you because they only typically play 2 to 3 switch cards in general, and if they didn't start a Gardevoir, they need to spend one almost instantly. So a lot of the time, Confusion is annoying for Mega Gardevoir decks. They can't really afford to simply discard the energy via retreating because they have a 2 retreat cost. So Confusion plus Faded Town can actually keep you alive in the matchup. I think it hasn't won me the game often enough to make it worth it, but that could be an option. Otherwise, you could just play something like Parallel City. It's typically just a very good card, and it's not going to punish you too much. You do have to bear in mind, of course, if you do use Parallel City and you have your Vaporeon set up, you have to be aware that it can limit your actual output. So keep that in mind if you're going to play it. A few other supporters, you could play Hex. Just because even though we are playing Wob, it's again, when you move out of Wobbuffet, you give your opponent abilities back. Well, you could say no for an extra turn, basically, by having the Hex in here. VS Seeker Hex, chaining Hex, and just not allowing the opponent to play from turn 1 with Wobbuffet, and then throughout the game with Hex can also help out against a few other archetypes. It could be nice, but I think the amount of abilities we actually play in the deck means that you can't really afford to Hex too often. The things that you would want to Hex, like Volcanion, we're trying to get around it by playing Vaporeon instead. So it's just different means of dealing with similar decks. And I've gone down the Vaporeon route, but you could just choose to play Hex instead. And from there, there's the question mark over tools. At the moment, we're only playing Floatstones, but there's a few that I've considered. Assault Vest could be nice for tanking up against a few other decks. Also, Bursting Balloon is one that I've tried out. I've not been a huge fan of Balloon, really because I was hoping that it helped out numbers against things like Volcanion and Turbo Darkrai, but they play like 3 ropes anyway, so they get around you quite often, regardless. And I don't think the Balloon in general has been important enough to keep playing. Another card is EXP Share. I don't think I'd play multiple of this, maybe just a 1 count, make the space for it, because it, again, just keeps maintaining attackers throughout the game. Things slapping it on like Wobbuffets and Lugias can be really helpful. Even slapping it on an Espeon GX can be really nice for just making sure we have attackers throughout the game, because if you start missing your elixirs, you start falling a little bit behind with this deck sometimes. and you sort of need a Confusion Flip to go your way to keep up with attachments. So maybe EXP Share can help you out and make you less reliant on Confusion Flips. So let's jump into the ladder now. Hopefully we can find ourselves some good old games. The deck is very strong at beating 3 or 4 of the most popular archetypes right now. Mega Mewtwo, thanks to typing, is very good. Volcanion is also, I think, fairly in your favour, with the Vaporeon certainly, if you're actually able to develop it. But the main one is Decidueye Plume, and it looks like we've queued into one straight away, so hopefully we're able to win this game and show off why the deck can perform against it. We've gone first regardless, so that's always a good start. What I like about the deck is it just has a lot of answers under item lock. We play 13 energy, so we will naturally still just be charging up attackers even if we are under item lock. We can search out our main attacker via energy evolution, and oh wow, what a weird hand to start off with. We just have a lot of answers in here, and it's really cool to see the deck play out because it's quite unorthodox. And looks like we are up against a Decidueye. We are going to... I think I'm actually going to Transmail before the Ultra Ball here, just once. Okay. We've got to figure out what we're doing with our turn. Am I attaching DC to like an Eevee here? Feels risky. We could DC the Shaymin. Yeah, I'm going to fire off a mail before anything else. Figure out our turn. Might just take Delinquent and then Ultra Ball that away. Think I'm going to Ultra Ball Eevee. Nah, we'll go Wob. Wob is important in this matchup. You want to find it straight away. We're now going to fire off our other Trainer's Mails before anything else. Floatstone's a big pickup for us. It means we can get the Wobbuffet into the active this turn. And Nest Ball would be the ideal here. Ooh, Elixir's a good card still. Okay, we'll take Elixir. Okay. Do I want to Elixir to this Wob, is the question. It makes Lugia a bit more powerful, but I think I'm still happy enough to do it. Alternatively, we can Floatstone Wob, DC Shaymin. I'm going to do this instead. So you find ourselves quite a few item cards. Eevee is going to be one of those. Double Wob down isn't too bad. I'm going to actually develop double Eevee here. But I think from there our turn is going to be over. I think it's simply a retreat into Wob and pass. Alternatively, we like let them play just for Sky Return. Nah, letting people play is not right. Not when it's a deck as strong as theirs. We'll just pass on this hand. We'll see how they can develop under ability lock. Typically the deck is quite focused on Shaymin for draw power. And they do actually search out a Shaymin, which is interesting. Do they have Lysandre in hand, maybe? Oh dear. Oh dearie dearie me. You have a good deck. Whoops. Thanks. Thanks, Daves. Kind of you to say that. Well, I wish he had actually just like played normally there so we could see a full game. But in those few emojis, we figured out the mentality of a Decidueye player when they come up against ability lock turn 1. Oh look, we found another one. Let's feast on these guys. Hopefully we get a full game this time. Losing the coin flip, so hopefully this will be more of a challenge for us, unless we start Wob again. In which case we don't mind if they develop Vileplume. which is such a weird statement to say. But we'll see how it goes. Having to drink a lot of water, guys. Apologies. I've got a bit of a bad throat. Oh, lead Shaymin. Sadness. And all these items. Oh no. We're just like every other deck. No, we should be fine here. We should be fine. Double Rowlet start. This one's even hollow. That's when you know they mean business. Let's see how nuts they can go turn one. We're going to see the forest. That's always step one of their plans. See an attachment to the active, which is brave. Kukui is a very slow turn. They have found an Ultra Ball out of it though. Brox. This is a strange list. You can tell already. Ooh, Tauros. So maybe it's a non-plume variant. We actually struggle more with the non-plume variant, believe it or not. We're going to see a rope from them straight away into Tauros. Playing rope means they don't play plume, right? Okay, they just pass. So, we're going to develop... I think we still go Wob here, right? Alternatives is Eevee, Double Elixir to Eevee. Don't play the DCE, play the Trainer's Mail. Hope to draw into a Psychic Energy later on in the turn. Because if we commit everything to Eevee right now, we're in a bit of bother. I think it could be a Sky Return into this guy. I think it's just safer right now. We'll grab Kukui. Can Kukui lose us the game? 5, yeah. Actually, Sky Return can lose us the game if we don't find other Pokemon here. I don't want to end their one-card hand though, because they had to Kukui. Ooh, double whiff on Elixir is rough. I think I'm going to Kukui and not Sky Return. Okay, this is good. This is better than any other thing we have. We can end like this. This is okay. VS Seeker. They just go for that Kukui again. They need to draw some cards. It looks like. There's the DCE. And Horn Attack for 80. So we're just going to Sky Return up into Wob here. There's another attachment to Rowlet, and they finally find Sycamore. There's a Dartrix. Surprisingly, okay, they've got double. That makes much more sense. Revitalizer for a Decidueye that was in there. Just the one of. We do currently have Wob in the active, so that's all good. We're just going to get Horn Attack for 60. So we can fire off Nest Ball. I think it's just fine to get another Wob here. Lugia is terrible in this matchup until they find their own Lugia. We can evolve into Espeon. I think I'm just going to... I could even spread my energies around. I think that's better, because I'd only be using Psychic anyway, if we Psybeam, if we find a switch card anyway. So let's hope for a Float Stone here. We do hit one, which is cool. Let's try and fire off an Elixir. This one hits, so we'll go on the one without any damage on. And we'll just go for the Psybeam. This pushes them into range with the Psychic, which is cool, and it puts them into an awkward spot. Mad Bull won't get a one-hit KO unless they commit the decidueye snipe. We'll see where they want to commit it now. They've set up a second one, which is slightly worrying. Of course, they could just flip tails on their confusion and make life much better for us, but we'll see. We actually get end into a new hand. I quite like that hand. We had Olympia to move into this guy next turn, but oh well. They are indeed going to Feather Arrow the active. Are they going in with the flips? That's what I want to know. Oh, he went in. Poor him. Poor him. Well, confusion, boys. That's where it's at. So let's just finish off this Tauros. And that's like a game-changing flip. Like I was saying earlier, flips can be game-changing for you. That's the difference between us getting a KO and us having 20 damage on us. Like, that saved us losing 2 prizes and an attacker. So, pretty good. It means this actually stays around for another turn as well. Like, it's grossly good for us right now. They've actually prized a few things. A couple of their feathery friends. And there's a third Dartrix in their discard pile. Because they play Brock, they may only play 1 Revitalizer, so 2 may be their current cap for decidueyes, which could be really good for us. So they can't really afford a slow turn here. They need to keep. They can't really Hollow Hunt. They need to double Feather Arrow and attack here for damage. I want them to play 1 more card from their hand. Because it looks like it's a free Delinquent turn here for us. That's exactly what we're going to do. Just limit their options a little bit. Maybe we catch something like DCE, so that they need to hold on to Sycamore. That's what we're looking for right now. Ooh, losing another decidueye could be good. And we're just going to fire off the Psychic here. It's the most damage, just makes the most sense. Let's see what they held on to. A Forest was likely the top deck. Unless they have a completely useless hand. Yeah, just VS Seeker. Going to be Sycamore. Oh wow, it's going to be Brock's Grit. That is very slow. Maybe it's a retreat Hollow Hunt turn? That's probably going to lose them the game anyway. I don't know what they do here. Just double Feather Arrow, bench and attack. Yeah, that looks like their play here. But I mean, they're only getting Trainer's Mail off the prizes. It's pretty risky for them. Well, they've gone for it, so they didn't even take the. They just went, wow, that's pretty brave. So they're planning to Hollow Hunt next turn, I imagine. That's the only thing that makes sense. I'm going to start thinning our hand. We have a surplus of energy right now. Not really going to fire off the end because it's only 4 cards and we know their hand isn't great, so we can just finish off the decidueye. If they try and promote Tauros next turn, I don't even think they can promote Tauros next turn. I think they need to Hollow Hunt this turn. So we'll see. We'll see how lucky they top deck. Just a grass energy. Wow, they actually retreated. That's really weak. That's really weak for them. Do we have Olympia in here? No, just Kukui. Am I going to waste a VSE just for Kukui? I mean, I still want to cycle here because I want to dig for Lysandre for next turn. And this is the only like dig card that we have. Because I want to hold this DCE. Okay. Let's set up another Espeon. And we're just going to divide 10 counters onto decidueye. Unfortunately, TCG takes forever to do this. But we'll get there. We will get there. That's a top deck. That's a beautiful top deck. Maybe they're back in it. Have to wait and see. There's a level ball. There's the promo Rowlet. 10 less HP, but doing it for the style points. That's what matters in this game, after all. Alright, second decidueye established. DC established as well. So we're going to get hit with 70 here, plus 2 more snipes probably. I don't actually have it in hand, but he's already praising me. So, we could lose the game if we Psychic, because he could double snipe Lysandre Mad Bull. So we're not doing that. Psybeam doesn't lose us the game, which is good. So I think that's what we're going for. The Olympia coming a little bit too late there. We're just going to try and thin things. Three, 6, 9, 150 plus 30. Okay. Still haven't found Lysandre in all of our deck, which is a bit worrying. I could Ultra Ball now, going for Shaymin. But again, it means if he flips heads on the Confusion, he could actually Lysandre KO the Shaymin for game. So we actually have to hold it. Have to hold everything and just go for a Psybeam here. Let's do it. So they're always going to go double ping here. Are they just going to go Rowlet Dartrix A? Let's have a look. What's their schemes? Yeah, that's what they're going for. Third Decidueye down, why not? It's their third DCE. They're retreating out Tauros just to pass A. That's pretty good for us. Oh, they have N. Okay. A couple of the only cards in our deck that we can't cycle. Okay, we find Float. Float's pretty good. Do we want to cycle? I guess we can cycle an Espeon. We can cycle these as well. Not going to put down the Eevee because it's 2 prizes, but sorry, it's 2 retreat. But we can get a psych in for 120 here. God, that was an awful cough. Sorry, you guys had to hear that. Gross. I'm battling through sickness for you guys. It's a noble cause, noble gesture. So, we can get hit for 20. They still can't attack us, and fortunately now, we do have Lysandre, where we can just retreat into the Wob, finally get there, and it's over. So that was an interesting deck. Tauros does make it slightly more awkward than some of the other tech attackers that the Plume deck would be facing. It's also much easier for the non-Plume build to build more decidueyes and recover, whereas if it's the Vaporeon list, we allow them to get the Vaporeon, then we turn the item lock on our own terms, sort of thing. So it's hard for them to develop more decidueyes later on. At least that's the game plan we go for. So it's actually harder for us to beat straight decidueye than it is to beat the item lock variant. So bear that in mind. Let's see, one more game, and maybe this time it won't be a decidueye matchup. Who knows? Okay, awful hand. We'll see if we can work with this. We've given our opponent a couple of mulls as well. Looks like it's either Yveltal or Turbo Dark. Whiffing Elixir, maybe it's Yveltal. EXP Share, maybe it's Turbo Dark. We shall see. Choosing not to end us. Okay, so Turbo Darkrai. This is a hard matchup for us. Much harder when we can't do anything. Okay. I'm going to let out of this because it's already got a tool attached. And that's all I can do. So I'm going to commit another tool and just carry on sycamoring. Couple of dark in the discard pile for them, but they couldn't find an attachment for turn. So that was pretty greedy from them. They could easily have guaranteed an Oblivion Wing and just have one attachment, but they went full greed. So cool that we could punish that. But that's, again, all we can do, as we top deck pretty poorly. We have 6 Ball Search cards, 4 Sycamore, 3 N, 3 Mail. We have a lot of outs here. There's a Sycamore. Okay. We can quite casually dump this hand, because we've got to get going now. And we straight away find Lugia, which is a big card for us in this matchup. Are we going to Ultra Ball for Shaymin here? It's pretty brave to just retreat into Lugia straight away, right? Means that Shaymin has to get us exactly DCE to be worth it. Okay, we'll go down this route. We'll keep the Sycamore in hand. It's a bit safer. Yeah, that's why. Because it can be prized. Okay, we'll just grab second Shaymin. Second Eevee, I mean. Elixir hitting is good. Did I pass last time without Psychic Assault? I feel silly. I probably did. Only realizing that it now, but could have 30 on this guy. Sadness. There's a parallel. Another tool comes down. Lots of tools already been played. They just get rid of a switch. Yeah, they did. Interesting. A Sycamore return, it seems like. The opponent is motoring through their deck. Finally an attachment for their non-EX Yveltal, and they can Oblivion Wing now and start charging up. Another Sycamore's pretty sad. But we can power through. Yeah, Seeker's not a bad pickup, seeing though our hand was pretty grim. Where do I want to commit this energy? Probably just Lugia. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. They would have Elixired if they had it, so it means they have to top deck exactly Elixir and hit Viesica Lysandre. For it to be punishing, for us to go Lugia here. I would love a Psychic Attachment here, just to confuse and slow down this Yveltal, but no luck. No luck so far. Trainer's Mail for the Hex. Wow, 3 XP shares down. And an N, which I'll take. We don't have Lysandre here. Maybe they'll gift us a switch card. No, they're just going to Oblivion Wing again. No juicy Viesica top deck. We're going to try and bait out a Darkrai here with a Psybeam. We're at 13 with their damage right now. There's Olympia. Okay, so here comes Darkrai. 15. Dark Pulse for 150. So, we've lost our window of opportunity where Lugia can tank 2 hits, which is frustrating. But we've got to cash in on it while we can. Get the 120 on. Maybe they get baited into Lysandre this. Delinquent isn't bad for us at all here, if that's what they want to do. Oh, cool. Actually pretty good for us. It's like the most pain-free Delinquent I've seen for a while. We're still in a bad spot though. Darkrai just has a lot of tempo on us right now. It's just not going anywhere. Olympia's not all that helpful. Oops. We want Lugia back. Lugia's important. I want to commit this energy just because of Delinquent. Do it this way. Wob coming in with a cheeky prize. 2 prizes, I should say. They've got some EXP shares to divvy out. So now Delinquent's painful. Your opponent's going to grab another Darkrai. Start attaching to it as well. So I think we've just really missed our chance to win this game because we were too slow. We had 4 turns of slowness. And those are the 4 turns you need to punish a Darkrai player, with this deck at least. You need to basically always get 2 hits in with Lugia if you want to win this game against this deck. But we'll carry on, we'll persevere. Maybe Confusion does things, who knows. Gonna hold the Eevee because it's a liability at this point. We need to force 7 prizes here, and they're all on our board right now. So maybe Psybeam does a thing, who knows. It's only 10 damage because of resist. They still have 3 VS Seekers for Olympia though. They've only played 1 switch. There is a VS Seeker, as expected. So they also have energy in hand, it looks like. 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 200, oh boy. N plus prey. Well, that was a game. So, ending on a bit of a downer for Espeon Wob. The deck is not perfect. It does have its flaws. Really just any deck that dead draws for 4 turns against Turbo Darkrai is in trouble. I know our opponents sort of missed a beat here or there of their own because they went greedy. But they eventually just got to that point where they can one-hit everything in our path, and we can't do that in response. So, that is Espeon Wob. If you're expecting lots of Decidueye, lots of Mewtwo, Volk, and nothing else, this deck is excellent. if you're still thinking that Turbo Dark is one of the best things in format. You've got some problems on your hands, and you've got some losses on the way, as we just saw. As I said, maybe the Tauros needs to come back in here to improve that matchup in the early turns. Lugia has been my favourite solution right now, but when you don't find it until it's too late, it's all a bit of a moot point anyway. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about the deck and how you built it, and any other changes that you would encourage or think about, or how have you been playing the deck? What do you think of it in general? Is it a serious archetype, or is it just an anti-meta mesh of a deck that only works against certain others? That's sort of how I feel about it right now. But in a closed format, I do think this is a true contender, and with maybe a few tweaks along the way, it could be a very viable deck. So leave a like to this video if you did. Subscribe to the channel if you've not already. I again apologise for my coughing and sniffing and spluttering. I've not been well, but we're still here, still making videos. Stream as normal on Wednesday. There's going to be another Wobbuffet focused deck on Friday as well, because we're so bored of losing to decidueye Plume. We're just sticking Wob and everything pretty much right now. So that's it for today, guys. Hope you all enjoyed, and we'll see you guys next time.